Okay, so in today's lesson, I want to dive in a bit deeper into the grid layout and explain how you can configure and adjust the column sizes within the grid so that all the columns are not necessarily the same size. I also want to talk about a couple basic concepts about the grid that you just need to understand. So anyway, I'm going to go back to the page we were working on, and you can see that I've got a page with a grid layout, 3 content elements inside of it that are all text elements, and the grid is configured to display each one of these parts with 4 columns. Now, I'm going to flip into Pilot again, and I'm going to edit my article where I have my layout option. My layout option is set to grid. And I just want to point out one thing real quick here. If I set this to 12, I'm working with a 12-column grid. So when I do this, by default, I'm not going to run into a 36-column grid-wide layout. It's just going to calculate 12 columns for each part and say, okay, these parts fill the space. It's going to stack up like a one column layout, right? Where each part fills the entire 12 columns of the grid. And if I go back and change it to anything greater than 6, really, right? If I say I want this to be 8, right? Well, when I generate the grid, what's going to happen is the first element is going to take up 8 columns. The next element is going to take up 8 columns, and that's not going to fit inside my 12-column grid because 8 and 8 is 16. I need it to be 8 and 4, right? And then my third one is going to be 8 columns. So how do I get this part 2 to fit in this white space over here? Because the first part's already taken up 2/3 of the screen. So what you can do with a grid layout is you can actually put together patterns, right? So I can say 8 semicolon 4, right? And what that's going to do, it's going to say, okay, I want the first element to be 8 columns, the next element to be 4 columns, and then I'm going to repeat this pattern. And so it's going to say the third element is going to be 8. So when I come back and I save it and refresh, what you're going to see is that I have part 1, 8 columns, part 2, 4 columns, part 3, 8 columns. And you can come up with any configurations you want now. So you can come in here and you can say, well, I want my grid sizes to be 6, 3, and 3, right? Or I can say 3, 6, and 3. And by making this simple change, I'm going to affect how those 3 parts lay out within this one layout for this article, okay? So super flexible. Just remember, 12 is the magic number. You can't put in 13, can't do any of that kind of stuff, but you can, anything that adds up to 12, you can create it. So you can say 2, and that would allow you to put 6 things in your grid that all had 2 columns each, right? Or you can just say 4, keep it simple, or you can say 5, odd numbers, and 7, right? And that pattern will repeat every time. I come back, refresh my page, and you'll see an update. Okay, and this is going to be really handy as we start diving into the product further, because you're going to be able to use the same concept to control how content is positioned within the body of the page, within the header, within the footer, the aside, which is not displayed on this page at this time. It's gonna go a long way. So make sure you understand this part. So that's it for grid column sizes. Simple and easy.